What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, episode 177. I'm, of course, your host, Josh Burton, and joining me today for a very much retro and old school feel, and I love this so much. It's just my teammate, my co-founder, my brother, Mr. Peyton Burton.
What is going on? Let me talk to you. The
The
Button Brothers are back. It's been a while. I can't even remember the last time me and you did a show together. Actually, it might have been some point of last year to start the season off. I think me and you did a couple shows together. But other than that, it's been great having Trev, and obviously Phil hasn't been able to join us this year. And DeRosa has been on a lot of shows this season, and that's always great to have those guys on. But it's also nice to just throw it back sometimes and have just me and my brother Josh do this. This literally started about 6 years ago. That's what it started off doing. So it's built from there, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. And by the way, if you've noticed, I've got a new background, a new setup I'm working with.
About
trying
time.
to get some of the stuff. It will be upgraded as we go along. But it's a brand new PC instead of my laptop. Hopefully the video quality is a little bit better. The sound, the lighting, I'm going to get it all taken care of. We got to upgrade and be professional for you guys. As always, we are live on the Twitter, the YouTube, and the Facebook group. You can follow along with the action with us live as we record episode 177. Leave your comments below. We will get to them as always, Peyton. I think let's start this off. We always like to start off with a piece of news. And obviously, yesterday it came out early afternoon that the legendary Maryland coach, Coach Davidson, and amongst other stops, Lefty Driesell, passed away at the age of 92 yesterday. He is credited with coming up with the term and starting the thing we used to love so much, Midnight Madness. Of course, it's not quite Midnight Madness anymore. Practice will start a couple weeks earlier than it used to. But one of the coolest things for me as a longtime college basketball fan is the Midnight Madness was so cool. Like you'd wait the first official kind of opening at the start of the year, sometime middle October. You'd wait till midnight to most of these places. A lot of places, like I know, like Indiana, you used to bring in like 2 canned food goods, and that was the admission. And you'd go in at midnight, be around thousands of your fellow fans, and watch your boys get a kick off the season. I love Midnight Madness. I appreciate the hell out of Lefty Driesell for that. And rest in peace to a legendary coach and an innovator in this game.
Absolutely. I don't know much because I'm obviously younger and didn't get to experience him in his heyday. But just looking up some notes on him, he was the first coach to win more than 100 games of 4 different D1 programs: Maryland, Davidson, James Madison, and Georgia State. So that's pretty cool. RIP, prayers up to his family, and legend in the sport for sure.
Yeah, appreciate the hell out of you, Lefty. Rest in peace, and thank you for your contributions to this game. Peyton, also, for the first time all year, the NCAA Tournament Committee kind of gave us their first sneak peek of their thought process. You know how we are. We're friends with a lot of really talented bracketologists, Jonathan Warner, Dan Vasta, to name a few that we've had on this show multiple times. The NCAA Tournament revealed their top 16 as of February 17th, and it looks like this. Of course, I think there's going to be a little shakeup after we talk about some of these games from this past weekend, but their first top 16 looks like this, Peyton. The overall number 1 seed's Purdue, not UConn. Are you surprised by that?
Yeah, a little bit. I think UConn's the better team. Well, we'll get into why I think that here later on when we review that Marquette game. But I just think overall that Connecticut's the best team in the country. They just got all the pieces, and everything's falling in place for them to potentially be the first team since Florida to go back-to-back in national championships, currently dominating the Big East Conference this year. Especially after the result that happened tonight or today, a little bit earlier, Purdue losing to Ohio State. I think if they do that again, I think UConn would be the overall number 1 seed because they deserve it more than Purdue does.
Yeah, I won't say I'm surprised because, obviously Purdue they're a freight train. I think, though, if you compare the two, I still favor Connecticut. We're going to, again, like you said, we're going to talk about it. Connecticut is the number 1 seed, number 2 overall seed in the tournament, according to their reveal. Their path, though, is where you want to be for them. They basically have no plane trips until they would make the Final Four. They're in, I think it's, where's that first round games at? Off the top of my head, it's around that Connecticut region. Then the regional would be in Boston, which is obviously nearby, and then they'd fly out to Phoenix. So that's where, if you're a Connecticut Husky fan, you want to be in that East region. So they were the number 2 overall 1 seed. Houston, the 3rd overall 1 seed, and then Arizona taking up the 4th overall 1 seed. You look at the rest of the top 16. that Midwest, your 2 seed, along with Purdue being the 1, would be Tennessee, the 3 Baylor, the 4 San Diego State. So the Mountain West getting a 4 seed, I think bodes well for the Mountain West Conference, which we have raved on a lot this year. Look at the East, the 2 through 4 seeds there, along with Connecticut, North Carolina, the 2 seed, Iowa State, the 3 seed, Wisconsin, the 4. We will talk about Wisconsin. I don't think they're going to be a 4 for very long. Out in the South with Houston as your 1, you'd have Marquette as a 2, Alabama 3, Illinois 4, and then out in the West with your 1 seeded Arizona, you'd have Kansas, Duke, and Auburn. If that was all we know, fill in the rest of the teams, I think we could agree that the West would be the bracket of death.
100%. Arizona's the 1, Duke, Kansas, and Auburn all in that same region. Out in the West, too. I mean, obviously that's going to favor Arizona being out there. But, I mean, that region is, once again, the region of death. And fortunately, if the bracket started today and that was the bracket, I'd be pissed off if I was a Arizona fan because you get put in the region of death. That's tough. That's tough to come out of.
No surprise, we've said the Big 12, like last year, they are the strongest conference again in pretty much every metric, including the most important, the eye test. By the way, I could go on a rant. The eye test is a real thing. I see some people trying to be cool and say it's not. It's absolutely a real thing.
I
agree.
agree.
The Big 12 has 4 teams inside the top 16. They have Baylor's a 3 out in the Midwest. They have Iowa State a 3 out in the East. They have Houston a 1 in the South, and they have Kansas a 2 in the West. That's really good for the Big 12.
Yeah. Once again, for like maybe 3 years straight, that the Big 12 is the best team or the best conference in college basketball. It's shown out year in, year out. We've had multiple teams that's been in the Final Four. We've had in 2019, Texas Tech was in a national championship game, was runner-ups to Virginia. The next year, Kansas or Baylor won the title, and the next year after that, Kansas won the title. And it just shows like the Big 12, if you want to win the national championship, at some point during the tournament, you're going to have to go through the Big 12 conference to get it done.
Completely agree. But let's start with our reviews from yesterday's action. We got to start with the number 1 team. It was our game of the day on the ECB Facebook group, Weekly Pick'ems. It was the game of the day for a reason. It was a battle between the top 2 teams in the Big East Conference, the 2 favorites, and a pair of top 5 teams in the country. Connecticut, the number 1 team in college basketball, according to AP and the ECB polls, tuck on a improving Marquette team who had been on a win streak, who had started to find their groove, and they went to Gamble Pavilion, and Connecticut showed out in the largest margin of victory between 2 conference opponents that are ranked inside the top 5 in the AP poll history. Connecticut 81, Marquette 53. Peyton, this game was tied at 18-all at one point in the first half, and then Connecticut just opened a can of whoop ass. And I think they made a statement to the country yesterday that they are the real deal to go back-to-back.
Like you mentioned, that game was tied 18-18 at one point. And then to end the second half with like 9 minutes to go, or the first half, in the first half, 9 minutes to go, Connecticut outscored them like 24-8, I think, at one point to go up big at halftime. And after that, they just never allowed the game to get close. I mean, this Connecticut team is one of the scariest teams I've seen in a while, and they've had legitimate chances to go back-to-back. And one reason why I think they have that chance to go back-to-back is because if you just look at this box score, if you watch the game, if you didn't watch the game, if you just go and look at this box score, there's not one player in particular that stood out to me. It was just a collective ass whooping. They are a well-oiled machine. They can go out there and score 80 points per game. They can hold the defense or hold the opposing team to under 60 points per game. They've got so many pieces that are capable of doing things. Tristan Newton completely outplayed the best point guard in the country, and Tyler Kolek got nothing going on in this game at all. Diallo came off the bench, had 14 points, had 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Klingon obviously did what he did, very efficient night with the double-double, 17 and 10. Cam Spencer is one of the best shooters in the country. This Connecticut team's tough to beat.
Well, let's talk about that because I put a tweet out from the ECB official Twitter yesterday, or X, whatever. It's always Twitter to me, that basically said, in order to beat Connecticut in the tournament, I think you're going to have to try to not only slow them down, but try to confuse them a little bit. Meaning, I think to beat this team, you're going to have to give them multiple looks on the defensive end, because if you run man-to-man, They don't have a weakness right now. So if you run man-to-man, they're so well-oiled, like you said, that they're carving you up. If you don't have a big guy inside to deal with Klingon, they'll give it to him, and he'll go for 35 and 25. If you've got a big, but not necessarily the greatest guard play, they'll carve you up with back cuts and dribble handoffs and middle screens and all this fun stuff that they do, and they'll kill you that way. I think in order to beat this Connecticut team come March, to stop them trying to go back-to-back, you're going to have to mix in a possession or two of 2-3. Then switch the man for possession 2. Then mix it, maybe throw in a 3-2 or like a 1-2-2 to give them a different look. Then maybe throw in like a 2-2-1 press. I would say a diamond, that's my favorite, or like a full court man, but they'll carve that up more than likely. A 2-2-1, you can fall back right into your 2-3 if we're talking tactical wise. I think you're just going to have to try to junk them up and dare them to beat you from 3. And Peyton, they're more than capable. They went 11 of 30 against against Marquette yesterday. 36%, but they still hit 11 threes. I don't know how you beat Connecticut without junking them up and praying that they miss from outside.
You're going to have to do something to, like you said, just make them rethink their strategy on offense, because playing man-to-man, playing straight up man-to-man to them the whole game is not going to get it done. I'm sorry, it won't. Even Kansas, that game in Allen Fieldhouse, even we tried out throwing some token presses out there. Like, we didn't strictly just play man-to-man against them the whole night. Bill Self did what he needed to do, and he adjusted and made some adjustments late game to actually have that, which way you can win that game. But like, if you just look at KenPom, I mean, the number 5 in offense, the number 11 in defense, number 5 in effective field goal percentage, the number 4 in 2-point percentage, and they shoot the 38.7% from 3. You cannot play straight up man to man the whole game and expect to beat them. You got to try some different shit.
And you can't do what Marquette did. You can't go 5 of 23 from 3 yourself. You have to make shots against Connecticut. The Marquette end of the spectrum, before we come back to Connecticut, like Tyler Kolek was held to a very quiet night. 7 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. He had 4 turnovers, 2 steals. That's not going to get it done in these big games. You need your stars to show out. Kolek did not have a great game. Cam Jones led the way for Marquette with 15 points, 4-4 from the floor, 2 of 8 from 3. Just Marquette in these big games, they have to hit threes. Anybody that plays Connecticut, they have to hit threes. 5 of 23, Peyton's not going to get it done, nor is only getting to the foul line 8 times. You cannot just solely be a set jump shooting team against Connecticut. You have to get a good mix of attacking the rim, trying to get Klingon in foul trouble, and hopefully hit your threes from the outside. But it can't be both. You can't only get to the foul line 8 times, and you can't go 5 of 23 from 3. You have to be great in at least one of those areas. Marquette didn't either yesterday.
Yeah, and UConn on 29 made field goals, they had 24 assists.
They're so good.
I
don't know how they're not unanimous. I voted them unanimous in my mind, number 1 in our poll the last month or so. They're so good. And I've said this before all year, and I'll say it right here in episode 177. Nobody in the country knows what they want to do and their identity better than Connecticut does. You look at the balance, Peyton. Newton played 33 minutes. He was the team leader for Connecticut, but 33 from Newton, 32 from Caravan and Cam Spencer, 24 from Klingon and Stefan Castle, 26 from Hassan Diarra, 15 from Samson Johnson. They had great balance up and down the floor. They've got a really good guard play. They've got electric big men. And then how about this? Has there been a better transfer in college basketball this year than Cam Spencer? Just what he's been able to bring to Connecticut. Not only for a while there in Rutgers, he was known as just pretty much a shooter, scorer. His defense has gotten a hell of a lot better this year.
Well, playing in the Big East and playing against guys like Tyler Kolek, you're going to have to be a better defender. You can't just come in and just be a straight-up three-point shooter and expect to get a lot of minutes. Obviously, if that's what you're coming in to do, which he's done that exceptionally well, I do think he's one of the best shooters in the country, not just the Big East, the country, period. He's lights out, and he's like one of the biggest reasons why UConn's so damn good is because when Donovan Klingon's down low, bringing so much attention down to the paint, he's going to have to kick it out to somebody, and who's better to kick it out to than Cam Spencer, because he knows he's going to knock it down for 3. So, this UConn team, you're going to have to do something to beat them. I do think they're beatable, because when you get onto the tournament play, It's lucky for everybody, like we mentioned for Kansas stuff. The game's playing on neutral site, so they are beatable.
But that's a scary thing.
Yes, yeah,
that's a scary thing, though. To your point, I think what you're going to say, they were unbeaten last year in neutral site games.
Yeah.
Or sorry, not neutral site. I'm sorry. They were unbeaten last year in out of Big East games, and Kansas was their only loss. Basically, they've had one loss in the last 2 seasons, not named a team from the Big East, and that was Kansas on the road this year. So you talk about neutral site, their fans are going to travel well, especially if they're up in that Boston regional. It's going to take a mammoth performance to beat Connecticut. You also want to touch on, too, you talked about top 5 or offense, 11th defensively. Look at just in-conference stats only. Offense for Connecticut, they lead the Big East in adjusted offense. They lead them in effective field goal percentage at 57.7. 3-point shooting, they're shooting 38.9% from 3 in conference play. They're second 2-point percentage, second in free throw rate, second in offensive rebounding percentage. You look on the defensive end, they're number 1 in adjusted defense, number 1 in effective field goal defense. Teams are only shooting 44% against them. Number 1 in 3-point shooting defense. Teams in the Big East are shooting 28% against Connecticut in conference play this year. And then you look at the conference standings, there you got a 3-game lead over Marquette now in the conference race. Barring some unforeseen collapse late in the year in these last 5 or 6 games, Connecticut's got this Big East wrapped and sealed. They'll be the number 1 seed heading into MSG come March.
100%. They got at least a 1 seed locked up pretty much, unless the wheels fall off completely in these last 5 games they got. But even then, I mean, they go on the road against Creighton. We'll talk about that here later on, previewing that game. They go the last 2 games, they go on the road to Marquette, and they go on the road at the Amp against Providence. So, I mean, even somehow if they do lose some of those games, I still wouldn't think they would be bad losses unless they lost to Villanova at home or something like that. But, I mean, UConn, looking at those conference-only stats, I mean, number 1 in offense, number 1 in defense, number 1 in effective field goal percentage, number 1 in the opposite stat for defense as well. I mean, it's just ridiculous how good and how stacked this team is this year.
Moving on from that real quick, though, any concerns for Marquette, or was just kind of blip in the road?
You just ran into a buzzsaw. I mean, it's hard to win on the road in anywhere. But if you go out to the number 1 team who's playing like the number 1 team in the country right now, even though you got your ass whooped, I still think they're capable of making a Final Four run. They got the best point guard in the country, and they got good pieces surrounding them. I think they got the build and the mold to make a Final Four run. You ran into a buzzsaw on the road. What can you do?
I completely agree. Let's move on. This wasn't initially on the topics today, but since we're recording this a little bit later in our normal scheduled time on Sunday, Purdue, we can go ahead and say shocking because Ohio State's not been good this year, but Ohio State under interim head coach Jake Diebler takes down the number 2 ranked Purdue Boilermakers, number 1 in the top 16 overall seeding list that we just talked about a few minutes ago, 73-69 out there in Value City Arena, Peyton. What a performance, rallying around. How many times do we see this in sports in general where a manager or a coach gets let go and fired and a new guy, the players kind of rally, have that initial surge for that manager or coach? And we're seeing it with Ohio State, at least for today, 73-69 over the Boilermakers. Peyton, any thoughts on this? Any potential concerns for Purdue moving forward? Or was it just another one of those games where it's on the road and shit happens?
On the road, and Ohio State had some momentum, or I wouldn't say momentum. They had some stuff. They had a chip on their shoulder, I believed, with the firing of their head coach, Chris Holtmann, and the interim coach. I'm sure he had a chip on the shoulder to come out here and prove a point. And what a better way to do that than do it against the number 1 team in the country in Purdue, or one of the top 4 teams in the country in Purdue. Zach Edey had 22 and 13, had his normal game, but he also had 6 turnovers shoe. So that's not good on Purdue's side. I don't think it's anything wrong with Purdue. Obviously, Ohio State's not had a great year this year. Thornton had 22 points. Battle had 19. Majority of their points came off of bench points. They had 26 bench points, which was just, compared to Purdue, they only had 4. So hats off to Ohio State. The fact that they did this with not really shooting the ball well from 3 is a sight to behold. It's really cool to see. Hats off to Ohio State, and hats off to the interim head coach.
Shout out to our guy Connor McCabe following along with us today in the podcast. He listened to the Ohio State game while working. Crazy game. Yes, sir, it was. Yeah, Peyton, I think I'm obviously leaning with you. Purdue, it's on the road. They've been playing well. Things happen. Bruce Thornton was amazing in this game. Yeah, as you talked about, 22 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He was a very much a difference maker down the stretch. Jamison Battle as well, 19. The only 2 Buckeyes in double figure scoring, but they got incredible balance throughout. Zed Key with 9. You went over all that. 7 of 21 from the 3-point line. Only missed 1 free throw. How about Purdue, though? Speaking of free throws, 20 of 20. They made every free throw attempt.
Everyone.
For a team who lives at the line. Purdue only got off 9 threes, though. 3 of 9 from 3. They're normally better than that. Edey, I think you talked about 22 points, 13 rebounds. He had 6 turnovers.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He's been turning the ball. And I wouldn't say yet he's a turnover machine, but I've been noticing, and we've talked about this season too, his assists have gotten better, where he's getting better about when doubles come, he can pass out of it. But along comes with that, he's still capable of having some high turnover games. Do you think the way to beat Purdue, I've said there's 2 trains of thought on how to beat him, but if you're insistent on double teaming him, I think you could force him into some turnovers that maybe will end up hurting them in a tournament game if you have the right double team, whether it come from the baseline off the weak side or just straight bum rushing down on a dig. I think if you double team him fast and make him make a quick decision, because he's not going to dribble out of a double team, he's going to try to pass. If you can throw a fast double team at him, might be the way to go for tournament teams.
I do as well. I didn't get to watch this game as much because we was watching your boys AC Milan play, who ended up losing. I was just hanging down with Dad watching some stuff, so I didn't get to watch this game live. But 6 turnovers, I am sure I'm going to go watch the highlights of this game because I have a feeling they had definitely double teamed him, and I'm sure they got him out of the paint a couple times and make him make some questionable decisions. I'm sure that's what happened. And when it comes to tournament play, I think you're going to have to double team him because he's just so dominant. But you're going to have to do it in multiple different ways. You can't just as soon as he catches the ball, you can't just send out a double team right then and there. You got to switch it up and keep him guessing, because if you do that, then he's going to pick it apart. And Matt Payne is a great X's and O's coach. He'll figure out a way to isolate that and make it more easier for Zach Edey down low to make passes out of the double team. So you got to switch it up, like how you double team him and when's the time to do it and when it's not.
I will say this too. You've got to almost anticipate, like you think of if you're a safety in football or a cornerback, anticipate the route, because if you're late on the double team, you will allow him to make a pass out, and then you're going to be vulnerable to either cuts to the rim or weak side 3-point shots on a skip, whatever. I think if you're going to double, you've got to go quick. Any slow double team's not going to work. Make your mind up as soon as he catches the ball, anticipate the catch, then run the double team so he doesn't have an opportunity to throw out of it. I think if you are going to double, it's got to be quick, though. Look at the Big Ten standings now. They were kind of like Connecticut, where they've had an opportunity to really stretch us out and put a wraps on the Big Ten. With the loss today, Illinois in the loss column is only a game back. They're 10-4, Purdue's 12-3. They're basically a game and a half out, but with a fewer game played than Purdue. This could be a race. Illinois could put some real pressure on Purdue down the stretch if the Boilers were to falter anywhere else down. We may have either a split Big Ten regular season champs, or Illinois could maybe come out of nowhere and kind of sneak this Big Ten title away from them. Purdue's got to try to close these games out when possible, or else they're going to leave the door open for the Fighting Illini.
Absolutely. Illinois dropped a game against Michigan State about a couple weeks ago. I ended up watching the majority. Actually, I think it was last Saturday they dropped a game at East Lansing. Michigan State was pretty much down that whole game. They was down 6 points for like last 4 minutes to get in the second half, and just they basically caught fire, and Illinois stopped doing what they're doing. If they would have won that game like they probably should have, then they would only have 3 losses in Big Ten play, which make this race for the top seed in the Big Ten tournament even more
interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. That's
look at the Big Ten as a whole. You talked about Sparty, Peyton. For all their falls this year, they're tied for 3rd in the conference right now. They're 9-6. Wisconsin's 9-6, and Northwestern's 9-6. The Big Ten race all of a sudden's got really interesting from top to bottom, with the exception of Michigan, who's 3-12. But even Ohio State's win today puts them with only a game back of not having to play on that first day on whatever, a Wednesday or Thursday, whenever. That's big. The less games you have to play, especially if you're one of these bubble teams who need to try to win at least a couple or maybe win the whole thing. Obviously, the fewer games you have to play in a consecutive days, the much better. So the Big Ten race, what we thought was pretty much a foregone conclusion, and it may still be. It's something to keep an eye on now, at least.
Speaking of the Big Ten, Indiana lost again today, man.
Northwestern beat them.
Yeah, Northwestern got them 76-72. That's back-to-back losses in a row. They've lost, what is it, like 3 of the last 5 or something like that. Like, it's just, man, the seat's getting hot in Bloomington, Indiana. Like, that job is going to be interesting, and I mean, we've talked about it before. I mean, basketball is good when Indiana, Purdue, or Indiana, like this whole region is good, and they're just not getting it done right now. And I don't know if they're going to get it fixed.
Yeah. We'll talk about more about the Mike Woodson kind of deal at some other time. But, yeah, that's not good. Indiana, and I think they were at home today too, right? I think it was in Assembly Hall.
It was.
Yeah, you can't lose in Assembly Hall to Northwestern.
Not at all.
Well, let's move on, though, Peyton. A team that had been struggling at home, still on had been on a 3-game losing streak at Rupp Arena after last Saturday's loss to Gonzaga inside Rupp Arena. They bounced back on Tuesday at home, got a nice win against Ole Miss, a tournament team in Ole Miss more than likely. They did it with defense. The question was, could they go to the toughest environment in the SEC conference, a place where Auburn had been 44-3 overall in the last couple seasons inside Neville Arena, a team that is ranked top 10 in offense and top 10 in defense, a team inside Neville Arena that looks like they could win a national championship. Could Kentucky go in and use their defense to get a win? And that's exactly what happened. Kentucky goes into Neville Arena and wins when game day was there 70-59. They held Auburn to 59 points. A top 10 offense that just a couple days earlier in the week blew out South Carolina by 40, put 100 on their head. That elite South Carolina defense, Kentucky held them to 59 points, Peyton. How surprised are you, and what stood out to you in this game?
If you would have told me that Kentucky won this game in the jungle by 11 points, I would have thought the final score would be like 86 Kentucky, 75 Auburn. No, I feel like their defense would make enough stops late to win the game, but I thought they'd win the game on the offense. Nah. That wasn't the case in this game. They held Auburn, one of the best offensive teams in the SEC, to 59 points in the home building when like 3 or 4 days ago, they put up 101 against a top 15 team in South Carolina in that same building. I don't got a cap on, but hats off to Coach Cal and the Kentucky Wildcats, because that's the best game. That's the best they've been, the best I've seen them since they beat North Carolina in the CBS Sports Classic about a couple months ago. I mean, what a display. Like, hats off. It's just, the defense was just so much better in this game. They were so connected. They had no Trey Mitchell. They had, Auburn missed a lot of shots. Some of them were open. But I will say, Kentucky did a great job of locking down that interior defense, because it forced Auburn to really force up some bad shots there late, especially with the last 4 minutes to go when they was trying to make a rally to come back. Got it within like 7 points, I think, after Kentucky went up like 64-49 or 59, whatever it was. Kentucky, DJ Wagner played great. Well, I wouldn't say he played great. He played good. He did what he needed to do.
He was
defensively, he did well. Antonio Reeves is that dude. He is 100%. I know you're going to say it. I'm going to go ahead and say it for you because I agree. I think he is an All-American.
I think
he's up there. He has to be in the conversation, because when it gets late, he is the silencer. Give him the ball and allow him to make the decision, and he's either going to win the game for you or he's going to lose the game for you. Either way, the ball should be in his hands in those final minutes. And every time Auburn would try to make a run, they got it within 47-42 in the second half. Kentucky was up 5. Felt like the wheels were starting to fall off. Auburn, the crowd was getting hyped. Everything was starting to fall off at Kentucky. They weren't doing what they was doing in the first half. Here comes Antonio Reeves with the big three. Here comes Antonio Reeves with the big three. Here comes Antonio Reeves driving to the lane, little floater. Like, he just made all the big plays, and he played incredible. 22 points for him. What a display.
No, I completely agree with that sentiment. I think he's got to be on the short list for first team All-American. He and SEC Player of the Year, because he has been phenomenal. He has been that guy, and Cal said it. He's turned himself into a 3-level scorer. For his whole career, he's been just kind of a spot-up shooter, and he's turned himself into a pro because he can score at the rim. He's got that little mid-range floater, and of course, he's a three-point sniper. Plus, he plays defense now. And the Kentucky's defense, Cal, played one possession of zone. He pressed, and then the man-to-man defense, their ball screen coverage was so much better. You could see Auburn getting frustrated, and you mentioned that they had some open shots that they missed that maybe in normal circumstances they would have made. They went 4 of 22 from 3. But I think, too, the people who know, a lot of that was caused by Kentucky's defense was creating chaos for them. They were frustrated. They shot them shots in a hurry instead of maybe holding the follow through, shooting in rhythm, shooting it with confidence. Kentucky's defense won this game, and they still put up 70. I've seen a few Kentucky fans like, well, I mean, obviously we're thrilled with the win, but now I'm concerned about the offense. Why? We just said Auburn's got a top 10 defense. You put up 70 and played them in a mud fight. It was a rock fight, and you still put up 70 on this defense at a place where they don't lose games, and held them to 59. It was the third worst shooting performance in the Bruce Pearl era there. I think Auburn shot, 30-some% overall from the floor. They held them to 0.88 points per possession, which is incredible defense. And the Cats this week, they started the week before the Ole Miss game ranked 121 in Ken Palm in adjusted defense. They're now down to 80. So they're making progress. Cal shortened his rotation. He basically played 7 guys. Like we seen Zvonimir Ivicic for 1 minute. He came in, gave up a layup because he overhelped them defense. Cal yanked him. Bradshaw played 3 minutes in the first half. Didn't see him again. Cal basically went with his 7 guys he could trust, and he played them pretty much the entire game. Justin Edwards fouled out. But you know what? Justin Edwards, if you only looked at the box score, 4 points, 3 rebounds, 1 turnover, 5 points, you'd think, what'd he do? Justin Edwards in the last couple of games has really been getting better, and especially on the defensive end. Peyton, Aduciero has made it where he has to play the whole game pretty much. What he's able to do, blocking shots at the rim, probably their best on-ball defender. And then now he's catching lobs and throwing it down on people's heads. And then Ugano Nyensu played 36 minutes, 7 points, 11 rebounds, 2 block shots. Difference maker. I want to ask you, before we start talking about the Auburn end of things a little bit more, Kentucky's defense. Now, can they do this every night? Probably not. But they just did it to 2 pretty good teams in Ole Miss and Auburn. If Kentucky can show this type of defensive effort from here on out, I still think they're a Final Four team that we thought a month ago. What do you say?
I think the blueprint is there. They know what they need to do now. Like, hey, if we play some fucking defense, like, our offense is capable of beating any team in the country. If we can just start getting some stops, particularly late in the game like they did, then we can definitely get a Final Four appearance out of this whole deal like we were expected to do after the Champions Classic and after you beat up on Miami and you beat North Carolina in the CBS Sports Classic and everybody in BBN was like, oh, hell yeah, this is our chance to get our 9th title in Rupp Arena and go to another Final Four and be the team that we knew we can be, that we've had for so long under Coach Cal early in his years. And if you just play some damn defense, I don't think you're definitely not going to have this type of defensive performance every night. I don't think that's a substantial growth. I don't think that's something you can consistently do on a night in and night out basis, especially the SEC and especially against the teams you got coming up here soon. But I do think if you can hold teams to around that 75-point area, your offense is probably going to score over 80 points per game. That's enough to win you ball games in the SEC.
Well, think about this. If we had got this defensive effort, the Gonzaga game and Florida and even Tennessee may still beat us, but like Florida and Gonzaga and some of these other games, Wilmington, they win those games because in those games, all they needed was an extra 2 or 3 stops.
Yeah.
They stopped Auburn at one point, 9 straight possessions in the first half. 9. I mean, so if Kentucky's defense is going to keep improving, Peyton, I think it's about time to say this is still the team that could make a Final Four. And by the way, I mean, I wrote an article, I more of like an opinion piece that got some traction, so I appreciate that. That came out Tuesday before their game against Ole Miss, basically lamenting the fact that the frustrations of Cal being stubborn and all that. You know what? I even said in the little piece, I'm more than happy to be wrong. I want him to turn this around. I want them to be good. I want him to stay here. And I thought this week, Ole Miss and Auburn, he did a really good job coaching, and fair is fair. If we're going to bust his ass about it, you got to be fair. And maybe he's starting to figure some stuff out. He cut his rotation down. He's got them locked in a little bit more. So, you know what? Maybe they've turned the corner. We'll see. And you talked about their upcoming schedule. They've got 6 games remaining. At LSU on Wednesday, home against Alabama next Saturday, which is a huge tilt. Away at Mississippi State, home against Arkansas, home against Vandy, and then finish the regular season at Tennessee. Peyton, the way they're playing with the defense and, of course, that electric offense, there's a possibility they could win at least 5 of those 6. And if everything falls right, maybe they win at Tennessee too. But I feel much better against Alabama now after last night than I did after Gonzaga last Saturday. So it's very much a game-to-game basis for this Kentucky team. But I like the progression of what I'm seeing.
A couple things on Kentucky that I want to mention. First, I'm going to talk about their schedule. You mentioned they go at LSU on Wednesday. LSU just came off a big win against South Carolina.
It's a trap game.
Yep, hats off to them. What you can't do is coming off these 2 great performances back-to-back, you can't just go to LSU and lay an egg. You got to be able to compete. Even if you do lose that game, which I'm not saying they will win or they'll lose, you still got to be able to be competitive, and you still got to be able to keep that game close, and you got to be able to come up with some stops. The 2 games, I do think, we'll get to that later on in the season when we get to that Tennessee game. I do think you take an L there because it's just so fucking tough to play at that building. I ain't got to tell you that. But the 2 games I'm more intrigued to looking at, and I'll explain why, is one of your 2 final home games. You get Alabama and you get Arkansas. The reason I say Arkansas in there is because on the road, you have 0 pressure to win. 0 pressure to win. It's shown against Auburn. You beat Vanderbilt on the road. You went at Arkansas, beat them on the road. You went out Florida earlier in the season, beat them on the road. When you go into the road, especially in today's era of college basketball, you're kind of expecting to lose unless if you're like a UConn or like a top 5 team in the country, which Kentucky, as of now, is not near that at all. So when you go on the road, you have 0 expectations to lose. You're a little bit more looser. You feel a little bit more better. You don't have as much pressure on you. When you go at home, though, in Rupp Arena, we've already seen it. You lost to Williamstown on the road. You lost to Florida on the road. You lost to Gonzaga. 3 straight home losses on the road. First time ever in Rupp Arena. There is a lot of damn pressure for you to win that game. It doesn't matter who you play. There's a lot of pressure for you to keep the home court and win that game at home. So those 2 games are very intriguing for me. Last point I want to make on Kentucky is I think in this game, they won this game out of the first 4 minutes of the first half.
Completely
They
agree.
came out. It is so important. I don't know how many people realize this. It is so important. When you go into a hostile environment, you have to take the crowd out of the game, and you got to throw the first haymaker. And Kentucky did that. They went up 8-2 right on the start. Crowd never, outside of that 47-42 game when they started to make it a game a little bit, made a run, the crowd never got involved. Kentucky punched them in the mouth from the get-go, and I think they won this game after the first 4 minutes. How's off to Kentucky, though?
I completely agree. The 4 biggest segments of any ball game, the first 4, the last 4 of a half, those 4 segments in both halves. Kentucky won all 4 of those segments. They won the first 4 that start the game. They won the last 4 at the end of the first half. They won the first 4 to start the second half, and they won the last 4 to end the game. Huge. They win all 4. They win the game on the road. Real quick before we move on, SEC rankings now. After Auburn's loss, Kentucky's win, South Carolina lost again back-to-back. Alabama currently 10-2 in the conference, leading the conference. Tennessee 9-3, second place. Then you have Auburn, South Carolina, both at 9-4 and third and fourth. Kentucky and Florida at 8-4, only a half game back in the win column. The SEC race is starting to tighten up a little bit, and we talked about Alabama, Kentucky next Saturday. Kentucky's still got to play Tennessee. Alabama's still got to play Tennessee again. The SEC race, I feel like, is going to go down to that last day when Kentucky, Tennessee, and a lot of these different games start to shake out. It is important for the Kentuckys and Florida, South Carolina, for all of these teams really, to make top 4 in the regular season so you avoid a Thursday game. Top 4 gets a bye. They don't play till Friday. That's very important. The race in the SEC is on for those top 6 clubs. Exciting times in the Southeastern Conference. Peyton, let's rapid fire some of the other key results from this past weekend. Let's start with your Jayhawks. They go on the road, play Oklahoma, coming off of a blowout loss on the road at Texas Tech on Monday night where they got hammered by 29 points. And in a game at Oklahoma where they were down going into halftime and Oklahoma could not miss, Kansas settled down. They flipped the script. They come out of Norman, Oklahoma with a big 10-point victory, 67-57. You're shorthanded right now. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, you were. Kevin McCullough came back yesterday, which is a huge piece. But you're figuring it out. And we've said this about Kansas. They're good enough to beat anybody. Their depth does scare us. But you know what? When they're good, they're really good. And they can still make huge runs in March. This is a big win, especially being down and did not look good early.
Yeah, first half, Oklahoma definitely hit a lot of threes on us. At least it felt like they only hit 8 total, but I felt like they were just blitzing. Everything they shoot would just go in, which was hats off to their offense. Our defense wasn't really playing that well at the particular time. Second half, I'm sure at halftime, Bill Self whipped into the team like he normally does, got them motivated, made some adjustments like he always does, and we came out firing. We came out, closed the gap, took the lead, and once we took the lead, we started to stretch it out. Kevin McCullough, first game back from his knee injury. He had 10 points. Wasn't really very efficient from the field, 4 of 14, but he had 8 rebounds. He was in foul trouble a little bit. Hunter Dickinson had his normal game, 20 and 16, 4 turnovers, which cannot have that happen at all. Fofi hit some big threes late in the game for us to come back and win this game. 15 points, 5 of 8 from the field, 3 of 5 from the 3-point line. Also had 9 rebounds, which is pretty impressive for him. Dwan Harris had 11 and 7. But it just, for us to win, our defense has to be the reason why. And I felt like in that first half, our defense wasn't playing well. We're definitely very capable of making a Final Four run, but depends on what region we're in. Just a lot of stuff has to go right. And most importantly, we got to stay healthy because our lack of bench play is going to kill us in March if we're not healthy. So I'm glad we find road wins in the Big 12 are so hard to get, as it's seen with Kansas. So happy we finally got a road win. We needed this one desperately.
Yeah, especially coming off Monday night's ass whooping at Texas Tech.
Yes.
Though, again, not to harp on it because, again, I mean, Kansas – they're still good enough to make a run, as I've already said, but they're starting 5. Dwan Harris, Dickinson, Furphy, McCullough, KJ Adams played at least 33 minutes or more. Their bench, Nicholas Timberlake played 10 minutes, Marco Jackson and Jamari McDowell 4, Parker Braun 3. They got, 21 combined bench minutes, and that's it. And then 2 points off the bench. At some point, if they were to get knocked out in the tournament, especially early, that bench is going to come back to bite them. But damn it, that starting 5, Johnny Furphy being started in that starting 5 is kind of reinvigorated Kansas. His growth as a freshman, he played 37 minutes, had 15 points, hit 3 threes, and 9 rebounds, as you mentioned. Yeah, his growth has been massive for this team.
Yeah, and it's not just from his shooting perspective, like his ability to get to the rim. Defensively needs to work on some stuff, obviously, but his ability to get to the rim and just, he's a very smart individual, and it shows his basketball IQ is definitely at a high level. If you just compare starting 5s around the country, I think we got a top 3 team in the country just off of our starting 5.
Completely agree.
Bench play needs to step up there. I agree.
Completely agree. Staying in the Big 12 real quick, Peyton, Houston absolutely rolled Texas 82-61. Blew them out at home. Jamal Sheed had 16 points. LJ Cryer had 26. Emmanuel Sharp 15. Their 3-headed monster played really well. Juwan Roberts had 9 and 7 in this game. Again, we've talked about it. They've got the number 1 defense in college basketball, according to Ken Pom. They're a unit right now. They're going to roll a lot of teams. I want to save Houston what I think about them come tournament. At the end of the show, we've got something I want to talk about. But, I mean, very impressive from Houston. Again, you look at the remaining schedule. They get a return game on Monday night, tomorrow night against Iowa State, or tonight if you're listening to this on a Monday, against Iowa State. Iowa State beat them January 9th in that crazy game out there in Ames, Iowa. It was their first loss of the year, actually first of 2 back-to-back that week. They've got Iowa State at home. Saturday, they've got Baylor on the road. They play Cincinnati at home. Cincinnati last week and played them close. Then they play on the road at Oklahoma at UCF, and then they get Kansas at home to end the regular season on that crazy Saturday, March 9th, where we have a bunch of those big-time games in the regular season. Point being, Houston's going to win the Big 12 conference in these final couple games, obviously. Iowa State, Baylor, Oklahoma, Cincinnati, Kansas. No offense to UCF. They may get them on the road. But what are your thoughts on Houston and their first year in the Big 12 conference? Because when you look at the standings, they are tied with Iowa State still. So that game tomorrow night is going to be for the lead in the conference. Big 12 conference race is close too.
Sorry, I had my mic muted. But yeah, I agree. Houston, I think they've done what I expected them to do. Like, I knew they was going to be in the running to win this damn conference, and it wouldn't shock me if they win a share of the conference in their first season. I mean, Kelvin Sampson's one of the best coaches in the country. He knows what it takes to win. He's done it for a long ass time. So the adjustment period, I didn't think was going to be too harsh for them, like it would for maybe a UCF who towards the bottom half of the conference, and other teams who are coming into the conference their first year. I knew it wasn't going to be as big as a problem as for them as it is for the rest of the teams in the country or the rest of the teams in the Big 12. But I mean, Houston, they're defensively they're great. Offense, I mean, we'll talk about it more later. What I think they stack up against the rest of the teams in the country, but the metrics love them. And I definitely think they're a really good team. So hats off to them. And Texas, I mean, Max Amos was 2 of 14 from the field. Not good.
You're talking about disappointments at the end of the year. Yeah. They're going to be one of them, I'd imagine. The Big 12 Conference, 2 games separates the top 6 in the league. Houston, Iowa State, Baylor, Kansas, Texas Tech, and TCU are all separated by 2 games. Another one of these conferences is going to come down to the wire. Peyton, I want to ask you before we start to move on to some different stuff here. Whose slide concerns you the most? Wisconsin lost again this week, and Iowa beat them at home in overtime. They have now lost 5 of their last 6 after crawling inside the top 5 or top 6 in college basketball and the ECB poll a few weeks ago. They've lost 5 of 6. South Carolina has lost back-to-back. They lost twice this weekend. The only reason that concerns me, because I think they're starting to come back down to earth a little bit now. Who's more concerning with their losing streak right now? South Carolina's back-to-back or Wisconsin losing 5 of 6?
No questions, Wisconsin, in my opinion. The reason is, but coming into the season, Wisconsin had expectations. They were preseason ranked 5th for the AP poll and everything like that to finish in the Big 12 Conference. They were preseason top 5s in the Big 10 Conference this year. So they had a certain expectations coming into the season. South Carolina had zero. You had them predicted finishing last. Like most people in the country had them predicting finish last. They had 0 expectations, nothing to lose coming into the season. So, and if you had told Lamar Paris coming to the year, like, hey, your team would be 9-4 in the SEC play, 2 games out of first place, this couple losses in a row or whatever it is, I don't think he would sign me up all day. That's exactly what he said. He's done a great job at South Carolina, and I don't have any questions for them for the rest of the season. All the concerns go to Wisconsin for me. 5 out of the last 6 you lost when you had the chance to
4 on the road. 4 on the road, and the only home game was to Purdue, and they only lost by 6.
Yeah. I get that, but still, like, you cannot lose 5 out of your last 6. I don't even give a damn if it's on the road or not. Like, especially when you had a chance to even win this conference at one point, and you were like a top 15 team in the country. And right now, you're the last 4 seed in the whole like bracket preview that came out yesterday on Saturday. That's very concerning for me, and they got some shit they need to figure it out.
So I'm going to say South Carolina, the Wisconsin one, because 4 of the 5 are on. 4 of their 5 losses there are on the road, and most of them were close games. I'm going to say South Carolina, back to back. I mean, it's still an incredible year, 21-5. But look at the remaining schedule: at Mississippi, at Texas A&M, home against Florida, home against Tennessee, at Mississippi State, all tournament teams. The reason I'm worried a little bit about South Carolina and that they may come back down to earth is because usually when teams like this, who are not expected to do anything of note, start to get really high up there and start to get a lot of national publicity, And as soon as they start to get figured out a little bit and falter, the thing kind of unravels. And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but that remaining, 5 games, that's a brutal stretch, Peyton. 3 of them being on the road against, we don't know if Texas A&M is going to be in the tournament. They've got tournament talent. But regardless, A&M on the road is a brutal place to play. Mississippi as a tournament team on the road, that's not an easy one. On the road at Mississippi State, they're a tournament team, and then you got 2 home games against Florida and Tennessee. Those are very tough games, Peyton. There's a chance. Now, I don't think they'll lose all 5, but say they lose 3 of 5. Now they're all of a sudden got 8 losses. So I'm worried about that aspect where maybe they come back down to earth a little bit. Maybe the lack of big-time scoring production starts to catch up to them, and they kind of limp their way into the SEC tournament, and their seed line is heavily affected by it. It's the only reason I'm worried about South Carolina. We've seen this quite a bit in years past where team comes out of nowhere, and as soon as they lose, it's kind of like the wheels start to fall off a little bit. We'll see. But I think South Carolina's concerns me a little bit more than Wisconsin's does. So we'll agree to disagree on that. Let's take a look at this upcoming week, though. We've got some big games on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for the early part of the week, Peyton. Let's go back to the Big 12. We talked about it just a little bit. Now it's time to preview it. Tomorrow night, or tonight, if you are listening to this on Monday night, number 1 shared in the Big 12 right now, Houston plays host to Iowa State, a team that we told you had already beat them earlier in the year. Peyton, your thoughts on this? Can Houston get the revenge in the return leg against Iowa State and take a firm grasp back a hold of the Big 12 Conference?
I don't see Houston losing this game at home. I think the revenge factor is going to play into this eventually, as you mentioned. And obviously, the playing at home, it's just going to be too tough. Like, Houston's defense is just so stifling. First things first, if you're looking for pretty basketball, you're not going to find it in this game because it's going to be a grinded out, low 60s, around the 60 to 7-point area. Like, it's going to be low scoring. It's going to be
says Houston wins with no Hilton Magic.
I think yes. Well, that's my point exactly. I don't think Houston's losing in their home building. Houston wins this game. In a defensive, grinded out battle, LJ Cryer goes for 20+, and he's a difference maker.
I tell you what, though, you look on KenPom, they're all-conference. Jamal Sheed's leading the way right now in the all-conference race. Taman Lipsey's 3rd. So you're going to have 2 of the 3 best players in that conference, according to KenPom, do battle once more. Yeah, I'm with you. It's a defensive slugfest. KenPom favors Houston to win this game 69-60. I wouldn't even be shocked if the game's not played in the 50s. A low-possession game, low-scoring game. Neither one's necessarily an offensive juggernaut, and Iowa State struggles, for the most part, on the road. Now, they've obviously got road wins, but you know what I mean. It's different when they play inside the Hilton Coliseum. Houston's number 1 in defense. Iowa State's number 2. Iowa State's number 1 in turnover percentage, forcing turnovers in conference play. Houston's number 2. Neither one. Well, Houston's a much better offensive defensive rebounding team. Neither do a great job in conference, though, of keeping the opposing team getting from the foul line. It could be a little something. But pretty much they match up all the way through. I mean, Iowa State leads the conference in steal percentage, which goes along with their turnover percentage. It's got to come down to who gets on that run. I think this is going to be a game of who can get on one of those kill shot runs first. One of those 10-0 runs or like a 11-3 type run will be the difference in this game. But I'm with you guys. I think Iowa State will keep it close. I think it's going to be ugly, probably a lot of fouls called. But I think at the end of the day, Houston at home is going to be too much. And they've got a closer. They've got something Iowa State doesn't have. They've got LJ Cryer. I know Jamal Sheed, I just said, is leading the Big 12 conference, all-conference race on KenPom. But LJ Cryer is the closer. Let's make no mistake about that. Yeah. He's the guy, if you need somebody on that Houston team, go get you 25. It's LJ Cryer, not Jamal Sheed. So I think because of that, Houston will get on one of those kill shot runs probably late in the game and finish the game strong and get a win. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if this ain't played like 58-53, though. Something real ugly.
Last thing I'll say, I do think it's going to be low scoring, like we already mentioned previously. But like I mentioned with the Kentucky-Auburn game, I think the first 4 minutes of this game is going to be very integral part of how the rest of the game is going to go. If Iowa State can come out there, throw the first haymaker, and get a good run, like go up 6-2, even just something small, like go up 5-2, around that, get a decent lead to where Houston has to start doing different stuff on offense. Then I think it's going to be, I think Houston or Iowa State definitely has a chance to win this game. But if Houston comes out there, throws the first punch, it's going to be really tough for Iowa State to come back from that. That offense is just not as good as Houston is currently. I think Houston wins in the low-scoring one.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's a great point too. Iowa State's got to come out, throw the first haymaker. When I coached and played, we used to always have a saying, especially on the road, make them call the first timeout. Meaning we've came out and smacked them in the mouth where we've jumped them like 7-0, 10-0 or whatever, that their coach has to call the first timeout. Iowa State's got to come out and make Kelvin Sampson call the first timeout. That'll be a huge step in pulling kind of a mini upset on the road in that game. But, yeah, I think we go sweep all around Houston. Let's go to Tuesday night. We talked early, just opened the show about Connecticut and how great they've been. They've won 14 in a row. They're 3 games up in the Big East Conference. They go on the road to number 17 Creighton in a game where Creighton, they're 19-7. This is a chance they're going to try to keep themselves alive in the Big East race, and they're going to try to improve their seed line along the way. They need this one. Now, it's not like desperation where a team that's on the bubble needs it, but they need it for confidence sakes. They've won 3 in a row, but if we're being fair, they beat Xavier, Georgetown, and an improved Butler team on the road. They blitzed them by 22 last night, but not the greatest competition either. Like, if you look at Creighton's season this year, their best win by far is Alabama. They got Alabama early when Alabama was still figuring stuff out. That's their best win. But other than that, they don't really have a marquee win. They have a chance on Tuesday night to get a marquee win. Peyton, can Creighton hold home court and take down the mighty Connecticut Huskies?
I really want to pick Creighton to win this game because I think they need to win this game. It's very important for them to win this game. I think they have one of the best starting fives in the country. I mentioned with Kansas how they'd be, if we just compare on the top fives, they'd be a top 3 team. I think Creighton has a very good argument for being in that conversation as well. Their bench play needs work. The main thing, this game being at home, obviously if this was at Connecticut, I'd confidently pick Connecticut, no problems at all. But with this game being in Creighton, if you look at Connecticut's games on the road in the Big East, outside of 2 games, the Georgetown game and the DePaul game, it's been very close. Like, it could have gone either way. Like, they won at Butler by 7 points. They won at Xavier by 5 points. They beat Villanova on the road by 1 point. And then St. John's, probably the biggest deficit. They won by 13, but a lot of the games on the road in the Big East has been pretty close. Like, definitely could have gone either way. I just think UConn, I'm going to go with them. I feel more consistent about them. I feel more comfortable picking them. They're just the best team in the country by far. They've got the right mindset. They know what they need to do to win these games. They did it last year. Around this time, that's when they started to pick up their mojo and get everything back on track from having a disappointing like January last year. They're just going to be too much for Creighton to overcome. UConn wins this game. I don't have a score.
So I will say this. Creighton's been playing better in part because obviously Baylor Shireman's been damn good, all conference, like player of the year type good.
Yep.
But Stephen Ashworth, who for the first couple months of the year, I was really, really, I won't say disparaging, because I was telling the truth, but he wasn't good. Not by the standards in which he got brought in to be coming in from Utah State. But since January 13th in a home victory by 1 point over St. John's, where he had 11 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. He's been so much more productive and better for Creighton. Since that game, he had 11 and 4 against St. John's. He had 14 against Connecticut. He had 11, 12, 17 against DePaul. He had 26 against Butler, 20 against Providence, 12, 12, and 12, the last 3 on the 3-game win streaks, including 8 assists, 5 rebounds last night against Butler. Against Georgetown earlier in the week, he had 12, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. against Xavier last week. He had 12 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists. The production is going up. His scoring's going up. His rebounding's going up, and his assist rate is going up. His improvement and getting more comfortable in the system has made Creighton a better team overall. So I think in this game against Tristan Newton and those guards, Cam Spencer and company, he's going to have to play well. Like, he's going to have probably another 12, 15-point night, 8, 9 assists, help dig down for rebounds against Connecticut's big front line. And then Baylor Shireman's going to have to – he's just going to have to go off. I think he's going to have like a 20, 25-point performance. Colt Brenner is going to have to do his best to kind of protect the rim and neutralize Klingon as best as possible. I think Creighton being at home is going to be jazzed up for this. They're going to keep it close. They're going to make it very interesting to the end. But I can't see myself picking against Connecticut right now until somebody comes along that can prove to me they have the right formula to beat Connecticut, whether they're on the road, they're at home, or they're on a neutral floor. I think Connecticut's that good. I think Connecticut squeaks one out by a point or two, but I've got Connecticut going on the road and getting a win. Like, somebody's going to step up. It's going to be Caravan hits a big 3 late, or it's going to be Cam Spencer goes on like a 9-0 run himself, or Newton has a big bucket or two, or Klingon goes for 30 and 15. They've got so many ways to beat you, and when they need to lock in defensively, Peyton, they will lock in defensively. Connecticut's that damn good.
You edged me, man. I thought you was actually going to pull the trigger and pick Creighton.
No.
I was about to get excited. I was like, hell yeah. I'm like, because I really want to. Like, I do think they have the pieces, and they could potentially – it would not shock me if Creighton holds home court and beats UConn in a close one. But, man, UConn's just too fucking good right now. UConn wins. I can't do it.
Yeah, here's something interesting, too. Creighton has the 24th best defense, according to KenPom. They're 362nd in turnover percentage, though. It's not often you see a team that's like a top 25, top 30 defense that is that ineffective of turning teams over. Normally, teams are good defensively because they will lock you in half court, but they force a lot of turnovers. Creighton just plays solid defense. Yeah. I mean, look at their steal rating. They're 360th in the nation. They don't do a good job of keeping the opposing team off of the free throw line. So they just play good half-court defense, try to get you to miss a shot and end it with a defensive rebound. They're not really going for turnovers. But I think against Connecticut, again, you've got to turn them over somehow. You got to find ways to get easy transition layups and dunks or pull-up threes. I think just trying to play them in a man-to-man half-court defense ain't the way. But we'll see if Creighton can do it on Tuesday night at home. It's a very interesting one. Let's go to the SEC conference. Let's go back there on Wednesday night. Here's an interesting one. Florida on the road at Alabama. Now, I picked this game because Florida has won 3 in a row. They've won 7 of their last 8 games. The only loss being on February 3rd and a 1-point loss on the road to Texas A&M in a game which they had won and gave up late. Or else they would be on an 8-game win streak. They are going to be ranked in my ballot. I ranked them last week. They're going to get ranked again tonight when I turn in my ballot for the ECB and House of College Hoops ballots for the poll. Florida is playing really good. They're playing as good as anybody is right now in college basketball. And I think they have a real chance of going to the SEC leaders on Wednesday night and pulling off the upset. They've got an offense that can really play. They're ranked 9th in offense. They've got a defense that's actually efficiency-wise now ranked behind Kentucky's. But Peyton, they've got crazy good guards on this team. Alabama doesn't want to play defense. So again, like the Iowa State thing, if they come out and start off hot and put Alabama in some real game pressure early and keep the crowd out of it, there's no reason why Florida can't go get a big-time road win and make the SEC race even tighter. I like this game. This is one I'm definitely going to pay an eye on Wednesday night with kind of extra caution. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, they're number 2 in the nation in offensive rebound percentage. So not only do they shoot well, they go get their misses. So I think Alabama's in real trouble on Wednesday night of getting upset at home.
Here's why first of all, I think the game is very fun to watch. I do agree. Like, this game's going to be circled on my calendar. I'm definitely going to tune in to watch this game on Wednesday. Here's why I disagree with you on Florida. Bama, and I didn't even really realize this. I haven't catch a lot of Alabama games this season. I've catch some. They had the number 1 offense in the country, according to KenPom. Mm-hmm. They shoot 38.5% from 3. They shoot over 57% from 2-point percentage, which is top 10 in the country. They hit their free throws 79% of the time, which is top 10 in the country. They're fourth in effective field goal percentage in KenPom. And they have a top 100. They got a top 75 defense who's capable of getting some stops. The last 3 wins, they've scored 99 points against Mississippi State. They've scored 109 at LSU, by the way. And they scored 100 against Texas A&M. The last 3 wins, they've scored 100 points almost every damn game.
Yeah.
Their offense is just so elite, and especially the hats off to Nate Oates, by the way, to turn this around after losing like a lot of production from last year, to come in here and still be able to do this type of numbers this season, still be first place in the SEC. Remarkable job out of Nate Oates. He's definitely in the candidate. If Lamont Paris wasn't doing what he was doing in South Carolina, Nate Oates would probably be my SEC Coach of the Year this season. He's been incredible.
8 100-point games this season.
It's
8. That's like Kentucky level. I mean, they're ranked higher in adjusted offense, but you know what I'm saying? Both teams can put up some numbers. That's why next Saturday is going to be so fun. But again, Alabama ranked 73rd defense. We've got 2 very, very high-powered offenses going. It's who's going to be able to string together 3 stops in a row. You remember when you played played in the college basketball, when you played basketball, for other coaches, I coached you, when you helped me coach in practice all the time, and then it translated to games, you would always be told, get 3 stops. Let's 3 stops in a row. Get a defensive kill, right? Whoever in this game can string three stops together wins this game, because both offenses are firing at will right now.
Yeah, and that can be like any time in the game. It can be right off the get-go. It can be late in the game. It can be in the middle of the game before halftime. Like 3 stops in a row is going to be very important in this game.
Well, think about it. You mentioned any point in the game. It could be 10 minutes to go and it's a tie game. Let's say Alabama strings 3 straight stops, hits 3 straight threes. That's a 9-point swing. That could be enough to win the game. Or vice versa, if it's 5 minutes to go and it's a tie game or 1-point game, and Florida, 3 straight stops, 3 straight buckets. Now they go from losing and they're up late in the game. Whoever can put together the most 3 stops in a row, defensive kills, is going to win this game, because the offense is going to be a high-scoring game. Who plays defense when it matters the most and gets the most stops is going to win this game. And I'm telling you right now, Alabama is so good at home. They are an elite team offensively. Florida's playing with a shit ton of confidence right now. And so is Alabama. To be fair, they've won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of their last 14. So they're on a roll too. This is going to be a fun one on Wednesday night. Yeah. I'm going to say Alabama wins, but it's not super confident, because the way Florida offensive rebounds, Peyton, and you look at the defensive stat, Alabama's 245th in the nation of clearing the defensive glass. They're allowing the opposing team, to get 30.7% of their offensive rebounds. Florida will eat them up if they don't clean that up on Wednesday night. I say Alabama wins a close, high-scoring game, something like 91-89. But I will not be surprised in the slightest if Florida goes into Humphrey Coliseum and takes a victory there.
Yeah. I think Bama wins this game. I definitely think it's going to be high scoring. The complete opposite of what we think the Houston-Ohio State game is going to be. This game's going to be fun. It's going to be entertaining and just going to be must-see television. Tuning into this one on Wednesday. It's going to be a fun game to watch. You mentioned Alabama's record at home. They've only lost 1 game at home this year, and that was late November against Clemson, who at the time, Clemson was looking really fucking good. So I'll excuse that loss a little bit. But other than that, conference play, they're undefeated at home. They defended the home court really well. They've won 12 of the last 14 games. And the only 2 games that they've lost was at Tennessee and at Auburn, 2 top 10 teams in the country. Not bad losses at all.
And they got blown out in both too, though. I mean, they got hammered in both.
Yeah. But it's 2 top 10 teams in the country going to the road. It's hard places to play. I think Bama wins this game high scoring. I think 88-82, Bama wins.
It's going to be very interesting. I want to see how Alabama's guards match up against Florida's guards, because I actually think Florida has a little deeper guard rotation. So that's a fun one, man. Florida, I think they're a solid tournament team for sure. I think they could be like a top 7 seed if everything plays out right at the end of the year. What a job that oh shit, what's their coach's name? I just lost. Todd Golden. Todd
Yeah,
Golden has done this season. But let's start rounding this show out here. I want to do something different before we get in the shout outs and end this show tonight. I want to ask you, I've got a list of 6 teams here. And I want to ask you, we'll discuss what's their worst possible nightmarish matchup somewhere throughout the NCAA tournament. Like we'll pick an individual team that has a certain style that if they ran into them at any point in the tournament, that should give them nightmares. And let's start with Houston, because it's been kind of a nice little topic of debate amongst us in the ECB culture, or in the ECB family here. I think Houston, elite defense, right? Kelvin Sampson's Houston teams guard the shit out of you. Elite defense, good rebounding team, great toughness, great guard play when it matters. They can score, but it's not their MO in a high-paced run-and-gun style of game. They want to keep everything limited possession. They want to grind you down. They want to beat you down. If they ran into a nightmarish matchup in like an Elite 8 or a Sweet 16 or something, or a Final Four, like a Marquette that can score at will, or even a Kentucky that can score at will, that if they could play defense like they have now, you know what I'm saying, or in Alabama, I think that one of those style teams, I'll say Marquette for the purpose of this exercise. I think Marquette is Houston's worst nightmare in NCAA tournament time, because they want to play fast when possible. They've got so many shooters that can really put Houston in a bind with playing in a more up-tempo style game, more possessions in a ball game. I think Marquette would give Houston absolute fits in the NCAA tournament.
I think Houston's offense, and I agree with you. I have the same sentiment. You know, I mentioned earlier the metrics sort of love Houston, number 1 in Ken Palm. Even though everybody knows that Connecticut's the best team in the country, I think they're number 1 in the net. I don't know. I don't pay attention to the fucking net. Never going to. I'm pretty sure they're number 1 in the net. The metrics love them, and you just look at the offense. I mean, dude, they scored 57 points against Central Florida in their home building. The offense is good, but it's not top 10. It's not top 15. And yeah, I get it. They're number 1 offensive team in the Big 12, but there's not a lot of high-powered offensive teams in the Big 12 as it is. So that's not really saying much, in my opinion. I don't think they're shooting, they're 290th. I can't even see from my screen, but they're in the red in 2-point percentage. They're in the red in free throw percentage. They're 49.5% effective field goal percentage. Their offense is not as good as everybody thinks it is. They're 4th in offensive rebound percentage, which is great. We already know that. They're great they're a great rebounding team. That's what Kelvin Simpson does. That's in his MO. That's what he teaches us, and that's what they do. They don't turn the ball over as well. The 8th in turnover percentage. They don't have a high-powered offense. I don't think come March, their defense is electrifying. We get that, but you're going to have to be able to score the basketball, and I worry if they play a team that has good guards who can shoot the 3, who can play up-tempo, who has just as good as defense as they do, maybe a little bit lower, and who has physical front men or front court players. Perfect example is Arizona for me. I think Zona gets them.
I love that. Yeah.
Arizona is 10th in tempo, adjusting tempo and Ken Palm. They're 28th in effective field goal percentage. They're 15th in offensive rebound percentage, just as good as Houston is on that same category. They shoot roughly 37% from 3. They shoot over 55% from the 2-point line. They hit majority of their free throws, shooting 73%. And their defense is top 12 in the country. They got guards. They got Caleb Love. They got Kalen Boswell. They got Pele Lawson. They got Omo Ballo front court who can match up with anybody on Houston. They've got the mold to beat Houston and give them problems in the NCAA tournament, which is on the neutral side game, by the way.
Yeah, I love, especially if they both made Final Four. It's in Phoenix, so it's in Arizona's backyard.
Exactly.
I love that, actually. Arizona is a great, like, kind of nightmarish team for Houston. Let's move on. Let's go to Connecticut. Now, we've waxed poetic about Connecticut all episode long for good reason. If there was a team or two that would give Connecticut nightmares, if they're even possible of having nightmares at this point, I want to hear your thoughts first, because I've got 3 teams in mind, and they kind of go against the mold in which what I said, about having to mix up defenses and all this stuff. But I think there's 3 teams out there that would give them enough problems that could sneak a game from an NCAA tournament. But I want to hear your thoughts on who would be kind of a nightmarish type matchup for Connecticut in the tournament.
I guess Purdue.
Yeah, that's one of mine.
Zach Edey can match up with Klingon. They got
and he leads the country in getting the opposing team in foul trouble.
Yeah, the game's going to be mucked up. It's going to be probably low scoring because everybody's drawing fouls all the time just from those 2. And I think Purdue's guards are a little bit better than Connecticut's guards, even though their guards definitely has more to prove than what Connecticut's does. I think Purdue is definitely a team that can give Connecticut problems. Outside of that, I'm going to listen to you because Purdue's really the only team I can think of right now at the top of my head that can give Connecticut problems.
So since you said Purdue, I'm not going to take that. That's one of them. The other 2 are both from the SEC. Okay. I'm going to say Tennessee and Alabama. It's completely different style teams. Tennessee, again, they're not going to go zone. But damn it, you talk about a great defensive man-to-man team that could really excel kind of getting up in Connecticut and making their guards make plays, especially the way they switch ball screens, like hard hedge them and even full-out trap them with Zakai Ziegler and stuff. Now, Ziegler would have a nightmare trying to guard like Tristan Newton, but I think Tennessee's physicality could maybe throw Caravan and throw Cam Spencer off enough that they have a bad scoring night or bad shooting night. Tennessee cleans the glass up. They play elite defense. And this year, they've got a showstopper in Dalton Connect. Jonas Adu would do his best to bang with Donovan Klingon. And they've got an experienced playmaker that can absolutely – he's not a sniper, but he can make open shots now from 3. And Josiah Jordan-James, I think Tennessee is a problem for Connecticut potentially in like one of these Elite 8 type games. The other one, Alabama, simply just because they can score. Now, Connecticut would absolutely – carve them up, Alabama trying to guard them, right? They would get anything they wanted. But, are you still there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, sorry, my screen like went off. That was weird. It went dead for a second.
We're good.
Alabama would get carved up trying to play defense on Connecticut, but you talking about being able to score and put Connecticut where they have to probably make shot for shot against them, Alabama would give them a lot of problems. But my one team for nightmare against Connecticut would be Tennessee. Tennessee, I think, matches up and would give Connecticut fits and make them play in the mud in one of those type games. And they've got a closer. If they had the ball late and needed a shot to win it, Dalton connects that guy. I think Tennessee is that one matchup that Connecticut would try to want to probably avoid before the Final Four. Let's go to North Carolina. Who is North Carolina's nightmare scenario matchup in the NCAA tournament?
Kentucky.
Yeah.
Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky's already beaten them. I think Kentucky just great guard. You need great guard play to beat them. Obviously, defensively, Kentucky needs to get better, which, I mean, for this last week, they did a good job of doing that. So defensively, you're going to be able to compete with them. You need somebody. You need to be able to throw some big man at Armando Marquette, not just have one person on him. You need to be able to have like multiple options. And Kentucky definitely has that. They got Big Z, they got Niesio, and they got
Bradshaw.
Thank you. And Bradshaw. They've got 3 bigs who can potentially play even like 5 to 10 minutes, maybe more, who to throw out Armando Marquette, give him different looks. And obviously they've got the most electrifying backcourt in the country, in my opinion, with Reed Shepherd, Antonio Reeves, and Rob Dillingham. And DJ Wagner's playing a little bit better now, so he's been playing good. I think Carolina's kryptonite is a team like Kentucky who would give them problems, who's already gave them problems this season.
I like that. I like that. But I think, look at Carolina's losses. Villanova, Connecticut, Kentucky, Georgia Tech, Clemson, Syracuse. With the exception of Kentucky for the most part, all those other teams grinded them out and hit shots. So I think you got to have a team that'll grind them out, really get after them defensively, do their best on RJ Davis and shut everybody else down. And they've got to be able to hit shots in the meantime. I'm going back to Florida. I know I mentioned that their defensive like identity, they're like 83rd, 84th or whatever it was. But their offensive rebounds, Carolina loves to crash the glass. Florida will crash the glass. Florida's got shot makers. They've got guards. I think I could see a potential where it's like a second round matchup, right? If Carolina, we said they were like a 3 seed in that reveal or 2 seed. We'll say Florida's like a 7 seed in the second round. That's a tough matchup for North Carolina. Now, Carolina should win that, but I think Florida, how big they are, they've got multitude of guards who can go score the basketball, like you were talking about with Kentucky, and they clean the glass up. I think if they could play just good enough defense, like we talked about going Wednesday night against Alabama, I think Florida would give North Carolina problems.
Oh, I got another one. No, I mentioned North Carolina. How about Creighton?
Oh, yeah, same thing, right?
How about Creighton? Yeah, got a lead of guards.
Play good defense.
Play good defense, got top 25 defense in the country, and they're shooting 36% from three. Like they have the mold to beat North Carolina in tournament play.
I like that. Yeah, Creighton, Florida, either one I think are kind of nightmarish scenarios at some point in the tournament for North Carolina. Let's go to Kentucky, right? This is a simple one as of the moment because Kentucky's offense is so damn elite. Their defense, although getting better, you need a team that slows them down, keeps them in the half court, be physical and grinds them out. Kentucky's worst matchup in the NCAA tournament, especially in earlier rounds, to me, is Iowa State. Iowa State, a team like that mold, like an Iowa State that's going to make limited possessions a nightmare, or like a San Diego State's going to be physical, try to keep them in the half court, or a Wisconsin. Some team like that, I'm going to say Iowa State for mine as like a 4-5 matchup or something. Iowa State would be brutal on the Cats to try to get by because they are going to be so physical. They're going to keep it in the half court. They don't have the offensive firepower most nights, especially away from Coleman Coliseum or Hilton Coliseum. But a team like that, so I'll say Iowa State is a nightmare waiting to happen potentially for Kentucky.
If we're going off like defensive battles and shit like that, I mean, there's nobody better than Houston. Houston would give Kentucky problems.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But if I wasn't picking Houston, then yeah, Iowa State's the next best option, in my opinion. Be able to grind it out, defensive battle. Kentucky's going to have to be able to hit shots and also going to be able to just defend on the other end. And Iowa State's got some dudes who can, Taylor Lipsy, we mentioned him earlier, who can go get some buckets. So I think Iowa State's definitely the next best option if we're not going with Houston.
Yeah, and then the last two, Kansas. I'll let you take this one. You know them better than anybody. Kansas's kind of nightmare scenario team in the NCAA tournament.
I'd say Auburn.
I'd
say Auburn, the way they defend, they're fourth in defensive efficiency on KenPom. They got a top 25 offense. They got good guards. They've got a well-oiled machine as well. I think Auburn's a team that can definitely give Kansas problems. They're a team that I don't want to see in tournament play. It's unfortunate that in the top 16 seeds that they're in our region. Hopefully we can get them out of our damn region because I don't want to see them in March because they're going to be a problem. So Auburn's my number one for Kansas.
Yeah, I like Auburn. I'm going a different route, though. I'm going to Illinois. Now, they don't play as good as defense as Auburn does, but Illinois has got electric guard play that could – when Kansas loses games this year, or even when Kentucky had their problems, the reason being because of guard play. And I love DeJuan Harris, love Kevin McCullough and all them. But the way Terrence Shannon Jr. and DeMosk is playing, and even if you get like a good Quincy Guerrier or Coleman Hawkins kind of plays like that point center type of role, I think a team like Illinois would give them fits if the game got to a certain tempo. And especially, I mean, who knows what TJ Shannon's liable to go for 35 in a tournament game like this. I think Illinois is one of those teams because they do have a little bit of size. Coleman Hawkins, again, he wouldn't be great against Hunter Dickinson, but they've got some bodies they can kind of throw at him. Maybe they just say, screw it, we'll let him get his and we'll do the rest of the damage to the guards. They play a style in which Kansas may have a little trouble defending. I think especially if Johnny Furphy's got to step out and try to check Marcus Domask on a switch or TJ Shannon on a switch or Guerrier or Ty Rogers or whoever, I think they could exploit that. I think Illinois is a potential bad matchup for Kansas.
I got another one, and it's it's more of the mid-major side, but I think Dayton can give us issues.
Oh, 100%.
They shoot 39% from the three-point line. We always, especially this year, but it just seems in Kansas basketball in the tournament, Northern Iowa, Alec Ferocious. I forgot his fucking name already.
Ali Ferocious.
Ali, thank you. I couldn't say his name properly. But like teams that can just shoot the ball well from three, who just can't miss in the tournament, just always seems to give us fucking issues in the tournament. I mentioned Auburn. They did to us a couple years ago when they went to the Final Four. Actually, beat Kansas, North Carolina, and Kentucky in 3 consecutive trips to go to the Final Four. They hit almost every shot they can possibly hit against us. Northern Iowa did the same thing. When Shaka Smart was at UCF, or not UCF, VCU, thank you. And when he was at VCU, they hit a lot of shots against us. Teams that can hit shots against us consistently and have a big down low in DeJuan Holmes, who's going to muck it up down there. I mean, they've got good guards, and they've got good things going on now. They're 21-4. I think they can give us issues. If we're going to like the mid-major level as well, and keeping them as well.
I agree. Trev's been in the live chat, and a couple of his comments, talking back the Creighton UNC kind of matchup. He said Baylor Shireman versus Harrison Ingram will be sick. He says Auburn is a great answer. Alabama versus Kansas, as well as Indiana State would give Kansas problems. I was getting ready to say Indiana State for somebody else, which we will get to. Purdue. Purdue's nightmare matchup, Peyton. We know. Team that's got to kind of spread them out. They got to have a big man that can pull Edey away from the rim. You can't have a traditional back-to-the-basket big man to go against Purdue most nights. You got to have a versatile big man. And who better than Indiana State to knock out Purdue? They got Robbie Avila. They call him Baby Jokic. The way he passes, shoots, dribbles, all that stuff. They got guards and Isaiah Swope. That's really good. Julian Larry, Jason Kent, Xavier Bledson. This is a good team, and I know they've lost 2 in a row, which is going to hurt their at-large abilities here. But they get in the tournament, and let's say this is like, I don't know, a second-round game if Indiana State gets like an 8-9 matchup. Indiana State, I think, can give Purdue a shit ton of problems based upon style of play. They shoot 37.9% from three, Peyton. Exactly what we talked about to beat Purdue. They're second in the country in 2-point field goal percentage, basically 62%, and they shoot the hell out of the free throw line. They've got all 3 levels of offense you need to beat anybody, let alone pull an upset, and they've got big game experience already. They played Alabama to a good game without Robbie Avila, second game of the year, until Bama got away from them late and beat them by 22. With Robbie Avila, that's probably a much closer game. They played Michigan State on the road and East Lansing to a 12-point game. That game was tied with 4 minutes to go. This is a team that is not going to be afraid of Purdue. I think Indiana State would give Purdue all they wanted and more and potentially knock them out in like a second round.
I think that's a good option. Indiana State has lost 2 games in a row. They lost to Illinois State, and they lost to Southern Illinois yesterday on the road. It's going to be very intriguing because if they don't win the conference tournament, it's going to be really intriguing to see if they actually get an at-large bid or not.
I don't think they will now.
I don't think they will, unfortunately. I do want to see them in the tournament, so hope and pray that they can find a way to win their conference tournament, but they got to get in first for them to cause issues to Purdue. A team that I want to give love to, go back to the Big 12 Conference. Defensively, not so much, even though they do got a top 75 defense. I'm going to say Baylor. Baylor's got good fucking guards. They shoot almost 41% from 3, which is the number 1 team in the country when it comes to 3-point percentage. They got top 5 offense. They've got good guards with Ray J. Dennis, Jacoby Walter, and Jaden Nunn. Jalen Bridges is 6'9". If they get out hit him on some switches, have Zach Edey guard him, he can definitely pull him out to the rim because he shoots 40% from 3. They've got Yves Missy, who's 7 foot as well, who can sort of match up with Zach Edey a little bit, give him different looks. And they also got Jonathan Traume-Trottois, who can just a big old bully down low, who can help be physical with Zach Edey, which you're going to need to do. You're going to need to be physical with him. I think Baylor has a good opportunity or good chance to give Purdue issues in the tournament.
Can I throw a wild one out here that not only could upset Purdue in like a first round or game or whatever, that could probably get all these teams almost if it was their night? Just an off-the-wall one, McNeese State.
Oh, Will Wade.
Dude, they shoot 40% from 3.
Yeah.
They're small, right? Like, and Tavion Collins, 6'9", is their biggest player that plays a lot. He shoots 40% from 3. Javon Garcia, 43%. Shahada Wells, 40%. Like, dude, they got guys who can snipe. And DJ Richards, he's 14th in the nation in 3-point shooting, 47%, 6'4" guard, 51 of 108 from 3. They've got 5 dudes that they can rotate out there that can all snipe. And in a game like if Purdue or Kansas or Kentucky had to get out there and guard them and they got hot, I know it's an off-the-wall one because what is McNeese State? They are obviously 22-3. They're 63rd in KenPom. But you talk about a team like off the wall, or off the radar. McNeese State, if they got hot, they could be one of those Cinderella stories. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
So a lot of fun there. Let's round this out with shout-outs, so Peyton. We all 3 have Caitlin Clark. I'll just say that out there.
That's a given.
Trevor said it in the chat. We all 3. She just broke the women. She passed Kelsey Plum to break the women's scorer record. She's only like 150 points away from beating the all-time NCAA Division I record that Pete Maravich has. Antoine Davis came close last year within 2 points of breaking it. She's going to break it, I think. She's still got a couple regular season games left. She's going to break the damn record.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
And, dude, I don't give a shit what Jay Williams says. I don't care what Cheryl Swoop says and all these disgruntled former legends. She's the icon of college basketball, period. Men or women. Just forget about it. Icon. I don't care that she don't have a championship, like Jay Williams said. There's a lot of people, though, who's great college basketball icons that didn't have titles. Larry Bird didn't have a championship. Is he not an icon? I mean, the fact she took Iowa to a national championship game and came very close of getting a national title with Iowa, who has no history. If she was playing on South Carolina, if she was playing on LSU, if she was playing on Connecticut, if she was playing on all these other big schools, she would have had probably multiple. She's an icon, and she's going to break the record, and she's extremely fun to watch. And shout out for breaking the women's record. She pulled up early in the game from the damn logo to break it.
Oh, what a great way. I mean, that's who she is. I mean,
shout out to Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, she's the biggest star in college basketball right now, period. She's the greatest collegiate college basketball player in women's, period. I mean, she's just electrifying. Like, when she goes to the WM, the fact is, she still has another year eligibility that she can come back. And the whole crowd was cheering for her to come back. She is going to, listen, for somebody like me, who I would fully admit I probably put a little bit too much stock in championships when we're doing debates and stuff like that. I put probably a little bit too much stock into that. I don't give a shit if she don't win a national championship. She's electrifying, and with 4 games to go, she's only 150 points away. She's going to break that record. That's 350 bombs. She can 100% do that shit. So she's electrifying, man.
Yeah, and my other shout-outs real quick while we wrap this up. Washington State. Kyle Smith's got to be the Pac-12 Coach of the Year and in the race for the National Coach of the Year. Peyton, Washington State's 20-6. Now, I don't remember who of us did the Pac-12 in the ECB magazine. I don't remember if it was you, Phil, or Trev. I know it wasn't me.
It was me.
I don't think you had them predicted to be right there in the running. They're only a game behind Arizona, and their next game on Thursday night on February 22nd, they play Arizona on the road with a chance to tie for the lead in the Pac-12 with 4 games remaining after that. Peyton, they are a good team. They've already beat Arizona once this year. They're a good team. They're a team that could be sneaky, win a game or 2 in the NCAA tournament. They're on a 7-game win streak. They've got really talented players in Miles Rice and Isaac Jones, and I can't pronounce it. Andre Yakumovsky.
Don't ask me.
I butchered it. Normally I'm the name guy, but regardless, Kyle Smith's done a hell of a job with this team, and Washington State's an outright tournament team unless they drop the next 6 all of a sudden, or next 5. They're a tournament team. They're a really good team, and you got to feel good for Washington State and Kyle Smith. Conference Coach of the Year in the Pac-12. Write that down. Bank on that. And then what was my last one? I had another shout-out, and I just forgot about it. Go ahead with yours, and I'll see if I can remember it.
I've got, outside of the Caitlin Clark, because as obviously you mentioned, she was going to be one of my shout-outs. Obviously, that's breaking the scoring record. I mean, that record's probably never going to be broken, I don't think, especially if she gets the all-time NCAA record. I don't think that shit's getting broken. She's electrifying. Shout out to her. Staying in the women's game, though, and this is crazy. Shout out to Francis Marion Center, Lauren Taylor, who set the NCAA record for all divisions with 44 rebounds. She did that in 26 minutes. She also had 34 points. And when you think of somebody doing this you would think someone would be probably tall, like around 6 foot plus, maybe 6'3", around that area. She's 5'11".
You told
She
me
had
that, and I couldn't
44
believe it.
rebounds in 26 minutes. She's 5'11". Tell me rebounding isn't all heart.
That's insane. Like we talked about this off air when you told me that. 5'11", she put 26 minutes, 34 points, 44 rebounds. She had to just any shot that went up, and probably including some of her own that she missed and got the rebound on, she had to snatch up every rebound. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
This record that she broke, it was set at 40. This was set February 14th in 1983.
That's insane.
So, like, the fact that she broke that record is incredible. Shout out to her. My last shout out, I don't know the name. I don't know who they are. They're a fan. Shout out to the one-man court rush, baby. Detroit Mercy gets the first win of the season. First win of the season. We had a one-man court rush. Shout out to that person. I ain't shouting Detroit Mercy for winning the game. Who gives a shit about that? He had a one-man court rush over there.
He looked so confused too, didn't he? I think he thought that everybody... He was probably sitting up in the stands like, yeah, boys, let's go. And they're like, yeah, let's go. And he ran out there on the court and realized nobody was out there with him. He's like, yay, whoa.
The one-man court rush. That's legendary.
Insane, man.
Shout out to whoever that is, whatever your name is. Shout out to you, man. Like, let's go. Hell yeah.
One-man court rush. That's funny. Trev says that stat line was nuts. Francis Marion, low-key a wagon, not far from him and Phil out there in North Kakalaki. I remember my last shout-out to wrap this up. Shout out to the Auburn players, staff, and fans at Neville Arena last night. One, the atmosphere was electric, but two, they were complaining about officiating. When in reality, yes, some bad calls went against you, but in reality, you shot more free throws and you fouled on 99% of drives in that game. A hand was being ripped on somebody's arm. Somebody was getting hit on the floor. That did not go called. You're lucky you didn't get called for more fouls. So shit happens. You want to be a blue blood, like you say? Well, you got out blue blooded last night in Neville Arena. Peyton, this has been a fun episode. I know we haven't done one in a week or two. It was fun to get back in the saddle with my new setup. I'll get some new lighting and all that stuff. So I'm really excited about that. Any last parting words before we get out of here for the evening?
Yeah, one more shout for me. Shout out to Tyler Cook. He wants me to apologize for something, so I'll go ahead and apologize. Let me take this chance to apologize for absolutely fucking nothing. The Fortnite King Carey does what the fuck he wants, Cook. Shout out to him. I'm playing Fortnite here in a minute. Let's go.
Well, with that, we hope you guys enjoyed episode 177. Thanks for following along with us throughout the course of the show. Download it, leave a 5-star review, share with all your peeps, and we'll be back on Thursday for episode 178, talking about potentially maybe a Florida win over Alabama or Alabama extending the lead. Maybe Creighton knocks off UConn. Who knows what the hell is happening in the crazy world of college basketball this season. But we're coming down to the end of things in the regular season. We hope you guys are enjoying this and following along with us. But for Peyton, for Trevor, for Phil, and the whole team here at ECB, thank you guys for listening and watching live with us, and we will see you on Thursday for episode 178. You guys have a good rest of your evening, and we will catch you down the road. See ya.